then it'll start coming clear, I
Okay.
guess.
Yeah, it's just all you have to do is ask yourself, what do I need to put on the page now? And what do I expect the user to interface with the site or data changing that I need to draw out or render later on? That's the question that you have to ask. And as of right now, we're just learning about the DOM. We're learning how to like put things in the DOM and how to manipulate things from the DOM. But we don't really have a back end right now to like store data. So for now, it's just this virtual space that we're just like, hey, if a person has some points that they played during the game, then I'm going to show a score, and the score is going to update with points, right? With values that didn't exist before, but they do now because the user hit the other user, and now the points go up or the points go down. Things like that. So there's a lot of room for dynamically manipulating this front end. But just ask yourself, like, what do I want the page to, what do I want users to see when the page loads for the very first time? And then what do I want to add and remove later on as the user interacts with the page?
So I have a question, Joe.
Sure, yeah.
Obviously, we're not in it yet, but we're going to be learning about jQuery. So is this what we learned earlier? Because you had said, like, these are interchangeable. So is it like you can do one or the other kind of deal, whichever route you want to take? Or is it like...
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you can do one or the other. I mean, once again, it all depends on the company that you're going to be working for. So I'll give you an instance. On break, I had a conversation with a previous student. So the student graduated maybe in June of last year. They got a job working in New York City. There's these stands in the city where people can plug in their phones. There's big screens. I forgot the name, like Link something, Link Site or Link Station. They're all over New York City. She got a company. She works for them. She reached out to me because they're a position to open up, and they're like, oh, we think you'd be a great fit. So I was like, all right, I'll jump on a phone. You tell me about the position. And I was like, hey, my first question is, so what technologies do you work with? I mean, I know what I taught you, but what do you work on a daily basis? And she said they work with pure JavaScript for manipulation of the DOM, which happens in some companies, and other companies use pure jQuery to manipulate the DOM. Other companies are moving on to React, which is more of a specific JavaScript thing also. But I found it curious. I was like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool that you're just using JavaScript. And she gave me one or two reasons why, for like supporting the company and because all these different groups. So using this baseline JavaScript, you can't go wrong, right? You really can't go wrong. Everyone's using the baseline JavaScript. If you're using jQuery, maybe using a different version of jQuery. Like at that point in time, things can get a bit more complicated. But her company doesn't work with React. And I was like, oh, do I really want to work for a company that doesn't work with React? I don't know, but that sounds like a pretty kick-ass company to work for. So you have to make decisions based on technologies that are out there, and know that learning all of them are key to you being able to make a decision on whether you want to pursue it. If you are interviewed for it, at least you are exposed to it, right? Because say upon graduation, one of you decides to apply to a company like that, and they're like, hey, we use just pure JavaScript. And you're like, I don't know, we only really did JavaScript in Unit 1. I only did it for a little bit, You're not going to be very strong with it. But you would know that that company used JavaScript because you would have looked at their site, and they would have probably said, really familiar with JavaScript and manipulating the DOM with just JavaScript. And then before you spoke to them or you went on some tech interview, you would have been all day banging out our little site with just JavaScript and not jQuery. But then the same goes true for a company that says, we're going to use jQuery. Then everything that you learn now in the afternoon is going to be like, man, I'm glad we had that lesson because now I got to use that. And jQuery is going to make it easier for your projects also. It's a do more with less mentality. That's what jQuery breaks down to. Do more with less. And you'll see the less portion when we get to it. Any other questions? I mean, it's a good question. So I feel it's good that you asked them. Shows that you're thinking about these technologies. And if you don't get something, that's good too. You know, if I can explain it in a different context, I'm trying to explain it the best way I can, drawing pictures and whatever it is that I can do to help you understand it. Okay. All right, so that looks like done with the question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into the jQuery lecture because I want to make sure we get this lecture out and you work on the jQuery lab. Like between the two labs and the material, the jQuery content in the lab are going to be more beneficial towards the project. And you will see what I mean when you start working with jQuery and the reasons why jQuery did take off. Like, why is jQuery so popular? Why is it the thing to use if you were going to manipulate the front end with with JavaScript, but packaged as jQuery? You know what I'm saying? So we're going to step into that. Cool. Lesson objectives. Let's see. Load jQuery from a CDN, a content delivery network, and perform some basic jQuery commands. Okay. And here we kind of say adios to vanilla JavaScript for now, right? Even though we've been using vanilla JavaScript in the previous morning lab to edit, jQuery is just going to make it easier, right? So, show you the DOM commands that were native to the browser. Yeah, get familiar with common patterns for interacting with the DOM. These same patterns that you saw, .style, are going to be translated into .css. Something like inner HTML, right? Let me see here. I get so excited now that I can draw. Things like, dot style in plain JavaScript is now going to be .css in jQuery, and it's going to be a method. Inner, text is going to now be .text. Okay. Do you already see that it looks easier, right? Less characters to type. There's even one that's like inner HTML is now HTML. Okay? So jQuery is just going to make things easier. And you'll see that when it comes to grabbing an element, instead of doing this whole document dot query, query selector, right? Instead of doing this now, it's a little sloppy, we were going to be doing that. And tell me that writing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters around the element that you want to grab isn't easier than writing it like this, right? Visually, it's just it's like a no-brainer. Like that's the way that you would go, okay? So these are some of the reasons why jQuery is just easier for developers to implement, okay? So is this thing still going? Did clear it. Clear all drawings, clear all drawings, clear all drawings. There we go, I gotta get out of it. Boop. All right, so check out the logo. So jQuery, so this is their motto. Write less, but do more. So you could probably already be like, man, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to write less and do more, right? It's kind of like convincing Aaron just to copy and paste when he decides to type, right? Don't do that, Aaron, don't do that. So it also sums up many device devs that they choose to use this and why they spend their time doing it. It also does things like cross-browser support. It figures out the browser that you're on and kind of leverages the internal JavaScript code that would work better on IE 10 versus IE 6. Something like Query Selector and Query Selector All were newer implementations of manipulating the DOM. Get element by tag name, get element by ID. Those were older. So when you're on older browsers, you can't use Query Selector. They're not going to work on those older browsers. Or you're going to have some issues. And jQuery is like, hey, what are you trying to do? Because this thing works more efficiently on this older browser, so I'm going to use that code. Oh, you're on this new browser? I'm going to use this new code because that works more efficiently. It takes the thought process out of of your need to think about it or write for those browsers. So what is a library, right? There's always talk about like what's a library versus a framework. And a library is just third-party code, right? So all of our libraries, right? Every library that we're going to use from this point in time is going to be based on JavaScript. We're going to have JavaScript as the fundamental library that we're going to be using, right? The JavaScript library. And on top of that JavaScript library, you're going to have jQuery. jQuery is dependent on JavaScript. React is dependent on JavaScript. D3, which is my favorite library, is dependent on JavaScript. Angular, which is another language you're going to use, is dependent on JavaScript. Without JavaScript, you don't have these libraries. And these particular libraries, these 4 libraries themselves, do very unique things. React and Angular try to do kind of similar things. React is more front-end view portion, and Angular is the whole MVC framework. jQuery is just manipulating the DOM. It's not a lot of structure to it. It's just commands that you can like mismatch in any which way you want. And D3 is the data visualization library. It allows you to build out charts and graphs with relative ease. So these libraries are what help us, but are all built on top of jQuery, right? So what is jQuery? It's a library of code that you can include in the same way you include your scripts. Okay, the browser loads jQuery, which allows us to use the jQuery commands to interact with the DOM. No different than what we were doing earlier, okay, with JavaScript. Like, hey, I have some JavaScript commands that I can kind of iterate over or manipulate the DOM, right? The library is going to translate our jQuery commands into the ones that the browser will recognize as pure vanilla JavaScript. We're just using a shorthand. So that's kind of key here. We're just using a shorthand to do this, okay? When we load jQuery, we can use jQuery as this naming convention, but the shortcut is the $sign. And that's really how you're going to see jQuery referenced as a $sign. This $sign represents the jQuery global object. Everything that is jQuery lives within that $sign. And if we want to elicit commands out of that $sign, we're going to have to grab elements like this or do just 1 or 2 other nuances. But if we were grabbing elements just like that, this is all we'd have to do. If I wanted an ID of something, this is the corresponding way to do it in JavaScript. This is how I would do it in jQuery. If I wanted to grab classes, this is how you do it in jQuery. This is how you do it in JavaScript, right? So we can grab IDs, classes, elements, right? So we're just here, we're creating an element. This is how you create something in jQuery. This is how we append. This is how we append in JavaScript, okay? Already what you're seeing is lots fewer strings of text to type, right? And we all know the less you have to type, the more efficient you're going to be, which is why I showed you Emmett. Less typing, more efficiencies, okay? So some common question here is, can I use jQuery and vanilla JavaScript at the same time? Yes, 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 you could. They're saying here you shouldn't. So if I make the decision to use jQuery to manipulate the DOM, then I should be using jQuery solely to manipulate the DOM. There's nothing that you're going to hit that you can't solve with jQuery. I shouldn't be mixing and matching those 2 libraries. I should make a specific decision, design decision. We're only using jQuery to manipulate the DOM. I don't want to see get element by ID and then see the jQuery way of grabbing it, because then it's just like, what is it? What are we doing? And the return values of these things are different. If I grab all the elements and then I return it via jQuery, I have new methods that I can work on these things. You know how we had node list and the HTML element thing that looked like an array? Both of them look like arrays. jQuery is going to have its own thing. Now, it's going to change things up a little bit. Additionally, there's a risk of mixing the data types. just like I said, node list versus HTML element versus the jQuery type of element returned. jQuery objects are not native JS objects, so you can't mix your data types. You know, vanilla JS commands cannot be performed on a jQuery object. It's a custom thing. It's like, I created this custom thing. I created this brand new for loop that if you just call this little keyword, I will run a for loop under the hood for you. It's that easy. So you don't have to do like for let I equals this. They have a method that's a looping construct that's like, oh, just grab the things and I'll keep track of how many elements you have. The first element's at 0. When I get to the last element, I'll just stop. I'll do that. You're like, cool. So I don't have to tell you to do like I plus equals 1 or, you know, y is less than that. And they're like, no, just tell me to run on this thing and I will run on it. Okay. So vanilla JS methods aren't going to work on them, and the same thing. And jQuery methods aren't going to work on those. So you have to be kind of careful with that. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is we have to open up some files. Now, I was just taking a look. I didn't see these files in our thing, so I'm going to have to Slack out these files real quick. Give me 1 second. Slack out some of the text for these things. I'm going to go ahead and create it though first. Let me do this. I'm going to create a folder. We did jQuery intro, right? We did that first. So I'm just going to create a new folder. I'm not doing it in the terminal. It's okay. Forgive me. I'm not doing it in the terminal. So here it's jQuery underscore intro. And now I have this jQuery intro, right? We don't have any of the starter files, so we're going to have to create the starter files, and then I'll Slack out the code that we're going to be using. So I'm just going to go here into the terminal, and I will, can I do it here? I think it might have been on one of my other terminals. Structure examples. Oop, here we go. PWD, my end, DeVito, nope. I was in some students. Master, LS. Unit 1, Rico 2, JO 5, instructor, examples. All right. Here we go. Hey, am I not in there? Oh, no, it's still in lenses. I was just helping out with some homework. Change directory into WDI. Here we go. Change directory SCI. Here we go. Now I'm in the right thing. We go to DAO5. Structure examples. Here we go. There we go. Change jQuery. Awesome. So here, just for the sake of ease, I'm going to do the touch because then we can create multiple files, right? Index, HTML. I can create an app.js, and I can create a style.css. And that's efficiency, right? Me going over here and like right-clicking and like apps.js and then right-clicking, this is more efficient. Even though it took longer to get there, it was much more efficient to be able to create those files, okay? So do me a favor, create the files, and then I'm going to find the other files so I can Slack them out to you. Let me get here. Click on thumbs up when done. All right, I'm putting just a thumbs up there. Let's see. Get you all of the CSS files here.
So is this not in the intro?
What's that?
Is this in jQuery intro?
Yeah, this is going to be the jQuery intro. So I just created the jQuery intro file folder, and then I created the 3 supporting files. So I'm going to do this. So all copy, paste that. Starting all of it. Select all copy. That. .js. Let me get rid of this jQuery because we're going to do that. Get rid of our app so we can do that. Sweet. So I just did that. What I'm going to do is this. I'm going to push those files up. You'll have the files, and then you can just copy and paste the code into your particular files. Okay? And this is main CSS. So I'm going to change this from main CSS to style CSS. All right, so I'm going to push this up. Git status. All right, looks like I have a few new files, right? So I'm going to do a git pull first to see maybe Jerica did something. No one did anything. Git add, git commit, right? Updated lab files, git push. Okay, pushing them up. They're up. So if we went to instructor note, instructor examples, did it not go up? Let's see.
You're in student examples, isn't it?
Oh, that's right, student examples. So instructor examples, jQuery intro. Yeah, so all I want you to do is just copy the HTML from here and copy the CSS. Did that not go up? Here's the CSS. So I didn't save the CSS, so I'm going to do this one more time. Git add, git commit, git push. There we go. I don't see why this is not going up.
It's here now.
Is it? Okay. Maybe just, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, just got it as well.
So just take a moment to copy and paste that code. I'm going to make sure that the thing just loads. You know, it just starts up. And not getting any errors. I don't see any content. Let me see here. Huh? The HTML. My styles. HTML, your style CSS. So, surprised I'm not seeing anything. Let me go back here. I should see.
You took out the link to the.
Right? I mean, I just see body. So unless I'm doing something, I see HTML, HTML head. This looks legitimate. Something happens like that, just so that I can test and make sure. I don't know, maybe it's, if I smack it into a code pin and it opens up, then I know that it's legitimate code and it's working. I'm just trying to troubleshoot.
There's an unclosed script tag. I don't know if that would be the problem.
Ah, that could be, yeah, let's see. Yeah, that was it. So when I edit it, thank you for pointing that out. I'll go back here, get rid of this unclosed script file, and I'm gonna go add, commit, push. All right. Sweet.
Joe, is there anything in the CSS file? Maybe I did it wrong, but I didn't see anything in the CSS file when I just.
Oh, I did. I think if you refresh, because when I pushed it up earlier, let me get rid of this. I didn't see it either, and then Jonathan said, Jeremy said he saw it. Like I see it now. Okay. So just get that set up. Let's.
Yeah, it took a minute, but
Yeah.
it did go up now.
Okay. So set that up. I got 13 on the thumbs up. Just when you get that all done too, just click on the thumbs up. We'll confirm everyone's good, and then we'll move forward. Once everyone's good with that, then we'll do. You too? Good? And 3. We just got 2 more, right? And 425. Sweet. We're good. Awesome. Go back here. Noise me. All right. Just go there. And we're good to go. So let's take a look. Now that we should have that, right? That's what we should see. So meat, dairy, vegetable, fruits is what we should be seeing, right? I'm gonna get rid of that. Now we just have this. All right. So connected that, we see it. Now the other thing that we want to do is, I think up here we did not connect the files. For devs, yeah. So we should see that. Now, what we're going to do is this. We're going to add jQuery, but we're also going to connect everything else. So if we want to add jQuery, we need the script tag for jQuery, right? So I can go directly to jQuery. I can do this. I go to the jQuery library, right? Paste that in Slack. Okay. And on the jQuery side, I see that I can have access to several different versions of jQuery. It's funny too, the other day when I was just teaching jQuery, I found a site that showed the statistics of the jQuery versions being used out there. And jQuery 1 was the predominant one. It's really crazy. I was like, serious? jQuery 1, version 1 is the predominant version? I'm just going to take a quick look if I can find that real quick, and I can show you the site that I had gone to that had that. Built with. Yeah. Hold on.
This link doesn't work for me.
That jQuery link didn't work?
Yeah.
Did it work for anyone else?
Yeah, it worked for me.
Okay.
I'm good.
I typed it in too and didn't work. Like I did both ways.
Give me a second and I'll see if I can shoot you the link again. Just let me describe this. These are the versions. So this particular site here, and they update this thing, like they just updated it April 5th, 2019, and they're showing you version 1 of jQuery is being used by 84.9% of all the websites that use jQuery, right? Like, wow, that's a huge percentage. You would think, my assumption would be, hey, hey, this is the latest version. Doesn't it contain some bells and whistles? Like, wouldn't I want to use the version 3? Does anybody have any ideas maybe why version 3 and 2 aren't adopted as version 1? Just curious. Any ideas?
I would kind of think it kind of goes back to the developers are lazy. So potentially like going from 1, 2 to 3, there might be changes where they might have to change the entire code base maybe.
Yeah. So that's exactly it. Now, here's the thing. I may not even say that it's laziness as opposed to you're the manager, you support the website, right? You've invested $100,000 in the development of the website using jQuery version 1, and your website works flawlessly. They come out with version 2, has some new features, discuss it with your developers, and they're like, you know, if we use this thing, it'd be really cool, would really help here. And then I'm like, I don't know, how much money is it going to cost for you to put in the time and effort to go through all of our code and update the things that you need to? And they're like, I don't know, that's going to cost like maybe $10,000 to $20,000. They're going to be like, I don't really, is what you're implementing going to get me $20,000 in return? And he's like, no, not really. Then why am I going to do it? Right? If you were a business person, you would do the same thing. You would be like, I'm not going to implement these things if they're going to cost me more money, but do nothing to help me get more business, get more traffic. If there was such a flaw in version 1 that we needed to get off of it because websites were crashing, because it was too slow, then yes, I would migrate from it, but that's not the case. And so version 1 of all the websites out there, 84% of them are using this version 1. Just to show you like how stable it is, and it's very popular. And there's a lot of websites out there that are using it. Okay, so cool. Who had the problem with the code? Because when I clicked on this link, it just took me here. It wasn't taking me to like the actual URL.
I did. It's not working kind of regardless of what I'm doing.
Interesting. So let me find. I'll get you the URL and then we'll send it out. So when we're talking CDNs, right? So if I said I want the minified version of this, right? Now when I click on it, this is the minified version of jQuery. And what you'll see here is we're going to code.jquery.com and then jQuery 3.3.1 min. This integrity check. Integrity check is just to kind of verify that no one has edited the jQuery code between there and here. And so they kind of validate that it hasn't been edited. So I'm gonna paste this out. Now remember copying and pasting now? If I was to copy this now and paste it into my into my HTML file, right, we have the head. If I went here and I pasted, I just want to make sure it's not adding any crazy code. And this time it did not add any crazy code. These look like quotes, or did it? That actually does look like crazy quotes. So you're gonna have to get rid.
Now, Joe, question.
Yeah.
Should this go in the top or should it go on the bottom?
So the question is, should it go on the top or should it go on the bottom, right? In this instance, why are we making that design decision? I'm just curious, like from what I taught earlier today, why would it go in the top or why would it go in the bottom now?
Because of based of how your page loads and everything loads into it.
Sure. Yep. So that's one reason to kind of maybe put jQuery towards the bottom so that if we're getting this file, then it might slow down the site. Now, once again, some best practices are to put this towards the bottom. This isn't such a large file that in this particular instance, would that affect us? So when we were working with our app.js file earlier, the reason why we put it on the bottom here, why was the reason why we put the app.js file here earlier? Not just for performance. What was the first thing that happened when we added the app.js file here? We added some JavaScript code, and then it errored out. Why did it error out?
Because the DOM wasn't loading with all of our content yet.
Correct. The DOM wasn't loaded with our content. So this jQuery file right now isn't touching our DOM. It's just loading its library into the ethereal memory space. So putting it here and being that it is really so small of a file, we can get away with this performance hit. This is not in any way, shape, or form really going to stop our file from like getting hit. I'm just suggesting that there are times when you want to add script files down here, depending on the performance and what they're doing, and other times when files are just kind of pulling in the minified version, which is going to happen in milliseconds. In our instance, we're not going to see the effects of this. So it is okay for jQuery to kind of be at the top. The other reason for putting some things at the top is, as a developer, if I look through the file, I'm going to see jQuery at the very top, and that's going to tell me that you're using jQuery for the rest of the file. Like, as I look through the HTML, I might be thinking like, oh, because they use jQuery here, maybe they're grabbing this thing, and this was structured this way because jQuery works better with that. So there's some other like contextual reasons for doing that, okay? I did, let me see if I have it, top sites using jQuery, all right? So I think I went to, not Quora, maybe this site. I think this is the site I had gone to. And so this site has some of the top sites. If I go to the particular site, I'm still on their site though. I have to go to their particular site because I'm still on the award site. Let me see if I click on here. Now I'm on that site. This is their site, and this is all using jQuery. It's kind of nice, right? That's kind of cool. I'm going to go to developer tools. I'm going to look at elements, and I'm going to investigate their site. The first place I'm going to go in is the head. I want to see, do you have jQuery here? So I'm going to do a search for jQuery. Where's jQuery? They're actually using here. I'm not sure I've seen this. This is a link tag, and it's linking to jQuery.com. All right. Let me see. Here's jQuery min. Where is it? Is it towards the top still? Nope. They look like they have it towards the body, right? So here's the body, and jQuery was in the body somewhere down here, right? So they're putting it towards the body. All I want to do is kind of get a best practice, right? They're putting jQuery towards the body. All right, that was one side. What about we click on another side? Let's just see. This plastic web. Here, I'm going to their side. It's all kind of crazy cool. That's with a mouse moving that. I'm going to do the same thing again. Let's take a look. It's supposed to be a site that's using jQuery, but they don't even have jQuery here. I don't see jQuery coming. So I'm going to get out of this and just go back and maybe take a look at just one more site. I don't want to spend too much time doing this, but let's maybe go to this site right here. Awards, click on that. All right. It's kind of crazy. Elements, search, jQuery. Here's jQuery. Where are we? We're at the body, and we're at the end of the body. So what I'm seeing is best practices here from on the web is not to put jQuery in the top, right? But to put jQuery at the very bottom. So that's what we're going to do. For our particular site, though, once again, it would have worked flawlessly. We wouldn't have seen any impact. There's nothing. But when you start adding a bunch of additional JavaScript files, like if this thing had multiple JavaScript running, like this is running some JavaScript stuff. Look, there's jQuery here again. There's some other stuff here. There's an app file. There's these two JavaScript files. Then they have a custom app file, right? They may have some JavaScript up here too. Look, they have JavaScript. They have this file, analytics. So it's not to say that every JavaScript file is going to go at the bottom, nor is every JavaScript file going to go in the head. Certain JavaScript files are going to be in the head. One of them that I always see is Google Analytics. It's always in the head. And I think Google Analytics is in the head because you want to load it. People hit your site and you want like it to start collecting analytics, whatever it is doing. But what you can see is there's at least 1, 2, 3 JavaScript files here, some JavaScript code as well. Another JavaScript script tag running some JavaScript code. So there's that balance. So now that we kind of know by investigating sites is how you decide what you should do, right? I went to a site that said the top 10 sites using jQuery. I don't know. Am I going to argue with that? I don't think I'm smarter than those guys. Like, their sites look kick-ass. I want to build like an amazing site. I want to spend all my day doing that. They did an amazing job. So I'm going to kind of follow suit with what they would have done, okay? So I'm adding the script tag here, right? This is where I want to add it. The other thing that we're going to add is our app.js. Where should our app.js file go then? How about that? Leave that up for a question. Where would it go?
That should go on the top, though, right?
Okay, so I have the top, right? So we have, remember what we're putting in it.
So maybe
we're
I'm wrong.
Be putting in jQuery. So I'm going to do this. Should app.js go in? Where should app.js go? Okay, here we go. I'm just going to do this. Where should app.js go? Head, body. All right, I just put a poll out there. Did I do poly or poll? Oh, I think I did the wrong thing here. I ran another tool called poly instead of poll. Let me try this one more time. Yeah, we're going to be using jQuery 3, Jeremy. I just saw your message. jQuery, should we put jQuery, where should we put jQuery? I'm going to try one more time. Where should we put jQuery? Head, body. All right. It keeps doing this. Hi there, since I'm there. Am I not sending it? Add choice. I don't think it's adding what I wanted to add. Send the channel. Is it adding the? All right, here we go. I think they changed this thing up, the app. Because this isn't what I was using before. We got body, one person. We have 5 votes. Let's see what we got here. Pull it up here. What do we got? 89%. Sweet. 90. Chester, is you like, I want to change my decision now. Like, I want to get out of here. All right. So, majority rules the body. So the next question would be, why the body? Who said the body? Cody, why the body? How about Cody? You tell me why the body.
Well, that's where primarily your CSS goes, right?
So if we want to put the app.js, so what if I put the app.js file here? If I did script src is equal to app.js. Does that look like it should go there? So I feel like maybe I got to provide some more clarity. The fact that jQuery is being loaded here, if this file contains any jQuery code, it is going to break. It is going to break because jQuery has not been loaded yet. Okay, it's the same principle as JavaScript wanting to grab a DOM element that has not been loaded yet. That's the process here, okay? If I was to go into app.js, right, I'm just going to go to the grocery store file. I'm just going to see if there's any errors. There's no errors, right? I'm just going to save everything here. Here's my HTML. I'm going to save it. I'm going to go here. I'm going to refresh. No errors, right? Now I'm going to go to my app.js and be like, hey, I want to grab, let me see, the class of meat. I want to grab a div that has a class of meat. I just want to see something. Let me see. Oh man, $ is not defined. but I loaded jQuery. I don't understand why that's happening. Now watch this. If I take app.js here, from here, and I'm going to copy it and comment it out, and I put it under under jQuery. Watch what happens now. There's no error message. The reason is this. App.js contains jQuery code. In the index file, jQuery must be loaded first before you can use a file that requires jQuery. Okay? So I'm just going to put that here in the comments. jQuery must be loaded first if for any files to use jQuery. So it's going to go here. I don't know why it keeps doing that. Place all files that use jQuery below the jQuery script tag. Okay? Otherwise, we're going to get that error message. It's no different than the way the DOM worked before.
Question.
Yeah.
So you see how your script source and the closing script tag is gray?
Here?
Is that okay? Yeah, because well, from my screen it looks gray. On mine, it's gray too. So I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, I'm looking here and I see like the top script tag is turquoise.
Yeah, that's just throwing me off because the bottom one's gray.
Yeah, I think it's the editor.
Okay.
There's actually, I think, one additional quote under by integrity.
Oh, so there's this cross origin. So let me do this. Here's the source. Here's the integrity, right? Here's the cross origin is equal to anonymous, right? This is just an empty script tag is equal to something empty. Is that it? Oh, there you go. You're right. There was these empties. I think, though, let me just make sure because on the jQuery site, I'm just going to go to the jQuery site.
That does fix it, though.
It does have it, right?
Oh, I think you had two. It just needed one.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay. So there we go. I think we fixed it. Did it? Or did it have just one?
Yeah, because if you add the equal signs and all
Oh,
that,
yeah. You need one single quote there. Do you see the color coding too? So this is what tells it. Source, integrity, cross origin are all this kind of dark blue.
Yeah, mine's still for some
Single
reason.
quotes, cross origin turns red. So I'm going to get rid of that. So I'm going to save this. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Mine is still weird. It's still gray. If I take off that equal sign in the quote, it goes normal. With it, it's not.
Yeah, I'm just going to paste what I have here. Maybe that'll help. So let's take a look here. I think we're almost ready to get okay.
It's the thing with copying the code from Slack and putting it in. If you change all of the quotations and just like type them out, it works.
Yeah.
I got it now. Thank you. Justin actually hooked me up.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't been using the script block, which is what I should have been using this whole time. Script blocks will add the code naturally. When I copy and paste like that, it kind of loses its. All right. We only have one more thing to do to set this up, and that's to add a link tag at the very top. And so I'm going to do source or href, right? So if I just do link tag, let me see. Link is relative, right? We're going to need the link tag, and we're going to need an href. Sorry, we're just going to do href is equal to, actually, we have our styles. Oh, we already have the style. It's already here, so we don't need it. We just needed the JavaScript. Okay. So I want to make sure everyone's good. Everyone good with it? Got your script tags done? No errors? So I'm just going to go with the lecture here. I just want to make sure.
Can you
Speak now.
bring your screen back up? The Atom screen?
Sure.
Thanks.
Here's my Atom screen.
All right, I'm all good. Thanks.
Cool. All right. Why don't we do this? Before we jump in any further, why don't we take a 10-minute break, come back, and we'll just jump headfirst into jQuery. So let's do this at channel, right, break time, come back at 3:43. How about that? Blink. All right. Alrighty. So we should all be good now. So we added jQuery already. Okay, we did in the script tag and in app.js. I had grabbed meet here. I'm just going to change this. This was a, well, you know, I'm gonna leave meet there. Okay. So what we're doing here is we're grabbing an element, right, using jQuery. That's what we're doing. Okay. Grabbed an element using jQuery. It's an element that exists in here, right? It's a class of meet that is a div that has an h3, right? That's all it is. There's app. I see it. If I put this in a div, right? So let's just say, I don't know, meet is equal to that. And then I say console log meet. If I open up the page now, I'm going to get out of the jQuery side. If I go back here and I refresh the page, this is what I see. Okay? I see that the elements of a class of meet belongs to a div. This is a jQuery return of an element. And if I expand this, I see that it contains this, contains one thing, right? It's a length of one, and that this thing contains all of these additional properties, right? And they're all set to kind of null now. And then it has other properties like client width, client height. I actually use those two properties quite often when I'm working with D3 to get the width and a height of an element, so I can render out a bar chart or something within the confines of these coordinate spaces, you know, or just, you know, widths and heights. So my thing doesn't exceed it. It says, oh, your height, so I'm going to adjust all my elements to be within this width or height, right? And then I'll use the percentage on each element. We have a class name. So there's lots of things here that we have access to, all of this, tons of stuff that we can leverage right now, okay? So what we're gonna do, that was kind of just grabbing the element and seeing it. I want to create a new element, okay? So creating a new element really just involves this. It's super easy to create a new element. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna use const now because const is never going to be reassigned to anything because we're creating a new element. It's always going to have this new element for the life cycle of that variable, right? So one thing that you're going to see as just a syntactic way of conveying to someone, a developer, that the variable contains jQuery is you are going to see it out there where they use $sign as the first character for the variable, and then the name of the variable that you want to call it. And then we are going to create, a new element. So this is telling jQuery, hey jQuery, I want you to create a new element versus this. See how when I grab the meet element, it didn't have the carets at all. The carets aren't there. The greater and less sign are not present. When they are present, it means you are creating an element, okay? I'm just gonna put here a note. This is indicated by greater, less than and greater than sign, okay? That's a clear indication that it is. Now I'm gonna console log this. Let's console log div. And once again, see what we get. We should get something very, very similar to what we saw here. Now here, I see, all right, well, I see the beginning part, WFN init. I see an array. Well, once again, what looks like an array, I see div meet because this one had a class. I see div, but I don't see this, right? And that's because this element hasn't been appended to the DOM, and we didn't pull it from the DOM. So it lacks, I suppose, some properties or something that defines that it's actually from the DOM that we grabbed it, versus, hey, this thing was created but hasn't been added to the DOM yet. So when you grab something from the DOM, it always has this information. When you create something and you just console log it without adding it yet, that's what you get, okay? So try doing that. Just try creating an element and console logging it and making sure that that's what you get, okay? Okay. Just gonna put the thumbs up there. Give it a shot. Is that a shoe?
It's a log.
It's a log. Unique. There you go. At least you got 3. Jeremy, you got 3 clicks. I'm working on 10 clicks.
Race to the finish.
I don't know. Who's judging? I'm just saying. I got 14. I'm not. Doesn't make me better. Watch, everyone's going to start clicking on the log. They're going to pull away from my 14.
Hey, Joe, I broke my page somewhere.
All right. You want to share your screen?
Sure.
Oh,
no, not yet. Okay.
Okay. Go ahead. Let's see what we got. So this looks like you don't have the CSS added, maybe? Do you have the CSS? I mean, I can't really see it. It's super small on my side.
Yeah.
But, let me see if I can increase it. Oh,
Maybe.
yeah. Here, if I increase it on my side, too. All right. I can see it better now. All right. So you have link to style sheet, style.css, and you have the style CSS file, right?
Yeah.
Okay. There's style CSS. There's style CSS.
I was going to say, it was loading earlier, and then once I did all of this, it broke.
And that's going in the JavaScript file, right?
Yeah.
That's app.js. That's interesting. I mean, that's all the stuff that we had done earlier, right? Did you like copy and paste the previous JavaScript file? Is that?
I'm just working in the same file, but I commented everything out and connected everything.
All right, where's the script tag? All right, so you know what we did? We had moved that script tag for jQuery to the bottom. We moved it to the body.
Okay.
Right? So I want you to move that first. Not that that's the issue. I think maybe you're not loading the app.js file, which you're not. You see how your HTML file only contains one script tag? Just look at your HTML file. There's only one script tag. You see that? It's one script tag versus, let me see, I'm going to paste, let me just open up mine. Speaker view.
Thad, line 28, the title, the closing bracket. Do we need a closing thing there? I don't know if that'll fix it, but
Let's see. Good eye. Yep, that was it. Nice. Woo!
You also have Thad. You also have the app.js file there too.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Let me see. I didn't
well,
think
I think
the app.js file, but I guess I was wrong. It was there.
I thought. Hold on. Maybe not.
Because I don't see the app.js file. That's.
No, I don't. Okay. So yeah, I'll go in and add the app.js file.
That's the thing.
Okay. At least it's not broken right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sure. Okay. Sweet. Yeah, you want that script tag. So this is kind of what you're missing. I'm gonna do it the right way this time.
You're not sharing yet, Joe.
Oh, I pasted it into the Slack channel. That's the script tag that you're missing, Thad.
Yeah, I had it there earlier, and I think whenever we were moving stuff around, I think I just accidentally deleted it and never put it back.
Okay. Yeah, there's times when I'm teaching that some of this stuff, and I always have to pull myself back, some of this stuff for me is so second nature that when I do it once, I'm like, yeah, they saw me do the script tag there. They know it's there. But that's not the case. Like if I was learning this stuff for the first time too, I'd be like forgetting to put things in the right place, moving things. So it's all good. Is everyone else good? Cool. Everyone else is good, good, good. Right? So when we inspected, we saw this element, right? We saw all of these properties and then all of these methods. So the thing that is returned is an object. It's an object because it has properties, right? Lots of properties and lots of methods. So it's an object, okay? You don't have to memorize these either, right? So it's saying here, don't memorize all this stuff. It's insane. You're going to use a handful of things, and the more that you use these things, even in the image, you see there's CSS. We're going to use CSS. We're going to use click. We're going to use ATTR. We're going to use append. There's a handful here that we are going to use. I don't think I've ever used dequeue or detach. I've never used that. I'm not even sure I use context menu or constructor. So there's methods here that I've never used and probably never going to use, and I'm not even going to investigate them because I don't think I'm ever going to use them, right? I'd rather learn to use the ones I know how to use more efficiently than learn how to use something that I might use once, I don't know, in the next 5 years, right? So it has all this functionality, and that's really good, and that's what we want. So now what we're going to do is we have this div, kind of like the image. Remember, we had an image, and then we appended the image. We created an image by doing create element, right? If I go back to our demo here, when we created the image, we did this, document.create image, and then we appended the image later on. These two lines of code together create an append, right? And this third line of code added the actual image so we could see it, right? 3 lines of code. Awesome. I'm going to go back here. If we want to add something, right, we have to determine where we want to add it, right? What's the element that we want to add it to? And for our sake, we're just going to add it to the body. Now, we could store the body in a variable if we wanted to leverage the body element later on. So just kind of good practice. Hey, let's, body is equal to body. Now, I want you to see here, I'm not using because I'm grabbing an existing element, okay? So I want you to differentiate. This is creating, this is grabbing. Grabbing is void of these greater and less than signs, okay? If you have greater and less than signs, you are creating something, okay? So we don't want to do that. Now, if we grab the body and we want to append this div to the body, right? I'm just going to move down here. There's a section here on loading the script tag in the head, and that if we loaded it in the head, we can have a pause mechanism. This right here pauses the jQuery code and waits for things to load. But we're not going to do that because we moved it to the end of the body, right? Which is where we saw the predominant sites, those robust sites using jQuery. That's where they had it. That's where we're going to put it, okay? So I'm going down to the section right here where now I'm going to take the body, right? I stored it in a variable called body, and I'm going to append that div, right? Now I'm going to do this, append the div. Once again, the div is a variable that begins with a $sign. So So I need the $sign. The rest of it is just syntactic name of the div. And if we do this, and I go back to groceries, and I refresh, and I investigate the HTML, and I go to the end of the body, look, I have a div. A div has been added to the body, right? Once again, it's kind of like the image. When we added the image, it was just an image tag with nothing else inside of it, just an image. We didn't give this thing any text. We didn't give it any child elements. We haven't given it a class or a width or a height. So it's there, you know, it's not really doing anything. It's just kind of there. Actually, it is. Look, there's it. It does have a width and a height. So there's default widths and heights for divs in CSS. CSS must have some default widths and heights for divs. Let me see. Here's a div. Yep. So it has a presence because there is a minimum height of 100 pixels and a background of white. So this div does have some presence on the page now. No content, but presence. Okay? So we have it.
Hey, Joe, quick question.
Sure.
So I'm not sure if I missed this here, but I noticed that when you're doing like your let body, you're doing the $sign there, and then even with like the const div. Is there a significance to the $sign in the declaration there?
So the $sign, I'm just going to change this to const also, just because we're not going to reassign the body. But yes, the $sign here, let me just, I'm going to put it up here because this is the first place that we created. We didn't put meat here, so I'm going to just put the $sign there. The $sign in the variable name represents, or is better, is variable, is a visual representation that the variable is using jQuery. That's all it is. It's just a visual representation. Think of it like this. If in the HTML, see how we have divs here? What do divs convey to you? What does a div mean to you?
I would say it's
a box that has stuff in it.
Okay, well, it sounds pretty clear because that's really what it is. It's a box that has things in it, right? What if I was to do this? And this goes to this morning when the question was asked. What if I did article? What does that mean to you? What does an aside mean to you? You kind of go where I'm going? The fact that I'm using these semantic names for these DOM elements, I'm trying to convey something to you, right? You may at this point in time not know when to use an article, but I can clearly add, if I asked you, hey, Ryan, what's an article? Ryan's going to be like, I don't know, it's an article. People write stories, right? That's an article, right? I'm going to speak on Ryan's behalf. That would be the answer Ryan would give. And I'm sure, you know, Justin would give the same answer. Lauren would give the same answer. Everyone's going to give the same answer. If I asked Molly what's an aside, Molly would probably say, I don't know, maybe it's part of a portion on a website that's on the side. I don't know. I'm just brainstorming with Molly over here. And you probably would be right. So a div is this generic box. And I'm like, what does this box do? It could do anything. And that's kind of where we give classes to give it some context, right? When we're doing it in JavaScript, I just want the person who's looking at the code to know that if they see this variable, if I took meat and I put it all the way down here, say I have 100 lines of code and this console log is on line 500. They see this. If they look at this, what can they deduce from this? What's the one thing that they can deduce from this console log? The one thing. Jacob, what's the one thing?
Log something.
Okay, so I'm console logging something.
There's
I'm
meat
console logging
involved.
something meat related, right? But what do you think the $sign conveys to them?
It's just saying that you're actually using jQuery.
Bingo. That's it, right? I'm using jQuery. So the lines above this could have been just pure JavaScript doing a bunch of stuff like math.random, loop over an array, here's a for loop, here's an if statement, here's a bunch of yada yada that has nothing to do with jQuery. And then all of a sudden the developer's like, $meet. Oh, so you're using jQuery. That tells me that I can use this method and that property, right? It tells you what you can do with this thing. If it wasn't this, then I'm like console log meet, that's a variable. Once again, I don't really know. What is it doing? Could be storing anything, but just know that this jQuery is meant to manipulate what? What are we using jQuery to manipulate? Here we go. We're using it to manipulate the DOM, right? So know that when you see jQuery, it's being used to manipulate these HTML elements. That's kind of its purpose. For the most part, we can use it to do other things, but for the most part, it's meant to do this. So when I see something that has the $, that conveys to me that it is a jQuery element and thus has jQuery properties, has jQuery methods, and then I know that I can work with these things, right? That's all it is. It's a visual indication. No different than in HTML using articles, asides, mains, right? I think a section was even discussed this morning. These things have semantic context. That's it. They have no CSS associated with them. They don't do anything special. All they do is say what's inside of me represents what you and maybe most people consider an article, right? But even then you cross a line where like young sub might think this is an aside and I'm like, no, I think that's an article. And then we may have a debate about that, right? But in the end, we'll agree on it was really a section. So maybe we're both wrong. So I don't feel bad anymore, young son. All right. Does that answer the question about the $? Right? So Matthew, what does the $sign mean in that variable? Tell me, brother. Tell me.
It's just indicating that we're using jQuery.
Sweet. All right. Just want to make that clear. You won't always see this done. I'm just saying, you won't always see it done. But when you do see it done, it's for the intent and purpose of the developer to know that that is jQuery. Okay? Okay. So we appended the thing and adding a class to it, right? So I had meat up there already, right? So there was something that represents meat. If I take a look at my HTML, I have category of meat, dairy, vegetable, and fruit, right? Which tells me if I looked in CSS and I looked at meat, meat is going to have a background color of ruby. That's what it's going to have a background color of, right? Anything that has a class of meat, I could visually tell on my site that that's meat, and that's meat because of its color. Dairy would be another color, right? It would be this dark imperial blue. Okay, cool. I want anybody who comes to my site and starts adding things and gives a category to meat to then be visually represented by, and this is what we're going to do. Here's our div, right, that we grabbed. I'm going to do this. Div, so I'm going to just put here, add a class. And so I'm going to grab the div, and I'm going to say, hey, add class, and I'm going to say add the class of meat, right? I mean, we already appended the thing. The thing's already on the screen. If I dynamically give it a div of that, let's see. Look at that. Here's meat. Here's meat. Visual representations done via colors. Semantic representations via tag names. Semantic representations via variable names, right? So all we're trying to do is convey that, right? Now we can append another element, because our structure here is this, right? We have a div of a class of meat and then an H3. So maybe we want to add something to this thing now also, right? So I'm going to go ahead and say, all right, here, I'm going to create an H3. Okay, and I'm going to do const $, visual representation, H3. Remember the greater than and less sign. Emmy, what does the greater than and less sign mean? What do they mean? Quick.
What's that?
What does the greater and less than sign mean?
Is it just symboling that value?
Okay.
The H value.
Okay. I think a little more. We're going to get a little more. Anybody want to come? You can phone a friend, Emmy. You can phone a friend. Who do you want to call?
You're creating a new element.
There you go. It's creating a new element. That's all it's doing. It's creating a new element. Okay? It's creating a new element. And once again, I said that this creates a new element, and the greater and less than sign indicates that it's creating a new element. So I have the new element. I want to give my new element some text. So I'm going to put here add text. And I'm going to say $H3.text ostrich, right? Ostrich. Cool. Now I'm going to append the H3, right? This creates it. This gives it text, but it exists nowhere now but in like memory space. It doesn't exist in the DOM, right? So doing these two actions will only do this. Doing those two actions will do this, right? So here's our file, here's our DOM, right? And then here's maybe like the JavaScript memory space, right? Right. So doing that action creates an H3 in here, but hasn't yet added it here. Only when we use .append, only when we do that, does it go from here into the DOM, okay? So by creating it like this, we only like put it in a temporary space. It's only until we grab, you know, a div or something, right, and append it, that it gets added into this thing here, okay? There. So that's what we need to do. We need to append this thing now. And we're going to do div.append H3, right? Just going to go back here, refresh. Look at that. We added some text to the middle to this new element. The fact that you're seeing this one thing get added, would it be possible that all of this content could have been like pulled from a database and we dynamically created each one of these elements as we pulled it from the database, right? I mean, if we can create one element, then we can create all of these elements, right? The power to create elements means I don't necessarily need to like statically have them in the file anymore. I could have created them dynamically, right? Might be easier to, it's easier to create dynamically via JavaScript or jQuery, you know, 1,000 elements than it is to manually create them, right? Copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, change the text, change the text, change the text. That's tedious. I don't ever want to do that. So just think about this as an approach to when you're building something. I don't really want to create the physical HTML elements in the HTML file. I want to dynamically create those things, okay? So your turn. Here we go. You're going to get your shot at the title here. So add another div with a food class. If you didn't already add this div, go ahead and add that one div also. Walk through the process of adding the ostriches. I'm going to leave this code here so you can visually see it. But I want you to add another div with a food class, whatever food class you want, and an H3 element. Good practice, typically append an element in the last step This was my last step. This was my last step, right? Reorder the steps so that the appends are happening last. Stretch yourself. See if you can chain some of the steps together. That sounds pretty cool. Chaining the methods together. If you're not, don't worry about it. Stretch even more. See if you can figure out how to prepend your new div so that's at the top. Prepend being the key word, being a class called prepend. Okay? So I'm going to give you 10 minutes. I'm just going to set up a timer over here. Give it a shot. I'm going to be right here. If you have a question, by all means ask. I'll set the timer.
So I have a question.
Sure.
I'm not getting the second meat to pop up. I'm not even getting like the red color to pop up on the bottom.
Okay. Can we share your screen, Jake?
Yeah.
There we go.
So I think this is wrong. This type.
All right. So let's see. Oh, so it wouldn't be when you're doing, it's not type for a script tag, it's source, SRC.
So it's.
There you go. It's SRC. That's really it.
So then I'm getting.
Okay, meat is not defined. So let's go into the app.js file, and it says meat. Okay, so here we go. When I was editing my file, put a $ in front of the let meat. The meat above on line 1. Put a $ on meat right there. Yeah. Go ahead. Now do it. Okay. There you go. Now you see the, like, if you looked at the error was like on line 2, $meat is not defined. That was the error that you were getting, and that's because the variable. Yeah, if you remove the $, just remove the $ there and rerun the thing. Yeah, you can leave it like that. Now rerun it and go to the developer tools. Yeah, meat is not defined, right? Yeah. Click on that link that says app.js line 2. Yeah, click on that. Look where it takes you to meat, right?
Okay.
And you look at what you're trying to console, and then you say, all right, if it's not defined, then that means it was never created. There is no variable called meat. And then when you start looking for the variable meat, you realize, oh, this meat has a $ and this one doesn't.
Right.
And then you make the decision, do I remove a $ or do I add a $?
And we leave it so they know we're using jQuery, right?
Bingo. Yes, sir. I love it. I feel like I must have said it like a dozen times, and now it's sticking. And you got to say it. That's the thing. Is like I feel like at this point I got to repeat it over and over again, quiz you on the spot, kind of get you like your brain like, oh my God, he just asked me, and like I didn't know. When you hear the answer, you're going to be like, shit, I'm going to remember that now, versus like me just saying it a dozen times.
Yeah, thank you.
You got it.
So, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure, Pooja.
Oh, okay. No, I was trying to ask this question from some time, so probably you didn't hear me.
Okay.
So the only advantage of using jQuery over traditional way is you have to write less. Is that all?
No. Oh no, there is so much more that we can do with jQuery. Like, so one of the questions that was asked, I'm just gonna share my screen, Pooja, so I can answer your question. So one of my students had asked, hey, what are some of the top uses for jQuery? Like, when would I use it, right? So I was like, top 10 uses for jQuery. I have a direct link for this. I would have to look for it. I'm just saying, oh, here we go. This was it. I took them to this site. And I was like, hey, you really want to know why I use jQuery? Okay. Well, one of the top uses for jQuery is that there's lots of plugins. So when I was talking about, I'm just going to annotate again. Oh, I don't know. It keeps doing this every time I go to the site now too. Let me see. I'm going to refresh the page. I don't want to log in. I don't want to do anything they want me to do. But just say this. Here's JavaScript, right? here's jQuery, right? Here's the jQuery library. And from jQuery comes thousands of plugins. Here's a plugin. Here's a plugin, right? They all have names. I just can't think of any names off the top of my head, right? So the fact that this plugin right here, right? Here's our jQuery. This plugin does something very specific. That plugin allows me to implement jQuery functionality, right? It uses jQuery and jQuery uses JavaScript. So I've already gone like 2 steps high, and instead of needing to write it in jQuery, I use the plugin. And the plugin has a ton of functionality, okay? One of the other reasons to use it, let me just clear jQuery and go back, is, it doesn't keep hitting me up with this, is we can use it for DOM manipulation, AJAX support for APIs, but one of the most important reasons it was used originally was cross-browser support. Browsers 10 years ago, i.e. 3, 4, Netscape, Opera, AOL, you know, I'm throwing some really old ones out there. There was so much, like all these standards, and you had to write different JavaScript so that it could interact with these different versions, and it was very time consuming for developers. So John Resig, the developer of jQuery, came up with jQuery, and he was like, oh shit, you know, just use this and it'll know what you're doing. It'll know what browser you're on, it'll figure out the code. Also, you know, the write less, do more, right? Really easy to write jQuery, not a lot of chance for like fat figuring, you know? This isn't document.query selector, and was query selector uppercase, lowercase, I left out an E, nothing's not working. So these are all the things, and it's kind of easy to learn how to use because they made it for developers like you and I. Like you and I were given this tool to make our front-end development so much easier. And I can only say it is truly easier to use, and it has a lot more benefits than just using straight up JavaScript. Does that answer?
Yeah, thank you.
You got it.
I got a question, Joe.
Sure, yeah, man.
So I've learned this before, but I'm curious on something. Just the way it's like for like $ body, is it need that doesn't need to be in parentheses, obviously, but I'm just curious, is that like because it's version 3 versus version 1? Is stuff like that? Or is that just
are you saying, let me go to my code. Are you saying that, did we grab the body? This right here?
So, I mean, it would probably be easier for, like, what I'm used to would be $, you'd put parentheses on that body, .append, and then in parentheses again. Like, it's just it's like a small thing, but I was just curious, like, if that was like a version thing or if that was just like, you don't need to do that.
No, I don't think it's a version thing. I mean, I'd have to take a look. When we do jQuery here, we've been, you know, we always use like the latest and greatest. We use version 3. That's just what we use in the class. But I don't think there's any difference between the way that you grab the elements like this versus the older version.
Okay, just curious.
Cool.
When you're creating a new div, do you have to rename it, or you just const a new div each time?
You mean this here?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if the fact that I created this div and then I appended the div, that particular div lives on the DOM. Like we could, I suppose, maybe append this div since we created this new div, maybe append it to more than one place, but I'm not really sure I've done that. So, you know, I had this div, and then we took the div, we added a class to me, we did this. And now say we wanted to add another div. So is the question, can we use this div as kind of another div?
Yeah, like, I guess for the purposes of the your turn part, like we're supposed to create another div.
All right, so let's test this out. So I'm going to say body dot append another div, right? Let's just see if this thing gets appended. Like if we have more than one div now, and look, do we have one? I mean, it should be white if we had one, right? So I don't see one. I'm going to go back to developer tools here because, I mean, we already appended that div. So I'm going to go back here, take a look, and see, do we have another one? It doesn't look like another div was added, so you're going to have to create another div. If we said let's, I don't know, div2 is equal to div, right? And then we're like, hey, I want you to append div2, right? Let's see if this works. Then refresh this, and now I have a new div. So you have to create a new element upon which you want to append. Does that make sense? I mean, we could have done like a for loop too. I could have said, hey, for let I is equal to 0, while I is less than 3, right? I plus equals 1. And then maybe grab, hey, let's, I should be using cons, right? Cons, div. Since we're in this scope, I don't think we'll conflict with this, so I'm just going to use that. Hopefully we won't conflict. I think scoping, we're safe here, but I'm going to say let div is equal to div, and then I'm going to say, hey, body, right, dot append div. Let's just see if this works. I want to see, I'm going to make sure that there's no errors, and did it not work? Nope. Surprised it didn't work here. Didn't do anything. I don't even think, yeah, it didn't add any of my elements. That's
I think
weird.
you're missing the bracket or the
oh, that's
greater
right,
than
yeah.
less than.
Exactly. See that? Good looking out. Like I know things should work. There we go. 3 divs in a row. They're all white, right? All the divs are white. So they all look like one huge thing. But I just created 3 divs. This scope creates a new div with every iteration of the loop. And then this body.append appends that new div that was created in that iteration. So you could see that if we wanted to add like a class name of meat, right? Maybe we could do this. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I could have done something like this. Let, I don't know, products equal to meats. Right, what was the other one? Meats, I forgot. Meat and dairy, right? So I'll just do meat and dairy. I just want to give this a shot. I didn't really test this out before, but my assumption is this should work. So I'm going to only do it twice, right? While I was less than 2, so that we only have 2 added now. And I'm going to say, hey, div dot add class, and I'm going to say products I. Let's see if this works. Really cool to see that work. Now look, huh? I got a meat and I got a dairy. 2 elements. So if I reverse these so that you can see the dairy clearly versus the meat, right? If I do that, when we do this again, look, it's dairy and then meat, right? You see the process of like how dynamic we are at this point in time? Just think. End of week 2, you have the ability now to like loop over elements or values and create elements on a page. You're like magicians now. Get to go into the weekend. I'm just gonna comment that.
Like whenever I do it though, when I declare my $div or $header 3,
yep,
it's like writing over it and it gets rid of the 2 new divs that I just made. Like they don't show up.
Okay, so I'm gonna take a look. I'm just gonna put in here, click on emoji, just so that I can keep track. Click on emoji when you're done, and let's take a look. You wanna share yours?
Sure.
Yeah, let's take a look. I wanna hit everyone's. I want to bang out the last few things that we have so that we can jump into a lab. You need to work on this lab. So let's see what you got here. You got const div. All right, so you can't do line 15 and 14 can't be done because you're redefining the same variable. I would assume at this point in time you would have gotten an error.
Yeah, it just like doesn't load on there, and then it says.
Show me the error. That's almost saying like div has already been defined. I almost feel like, is that the error?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. Syntax, div has already been declared. You can't create two variables with the same name.
So what's the naming convention then if I'm going to be creating a bunch of different divs?
So you would have to give the div a naming context of what you're creating, right? Just as creating divs themselves gives no visual representation to me, the only thing in the HTML that indicates the div's purpose is the class, right? So I see a div of class meat, and I'm like, cool, that's a div of class meat. I know that that's meat now. If I was to go into my JavaScript, I would have created a div that would probably be called div, meat or ostrich, so that when I look at that variable in the 1,000th line of code, I know what that thing is supposed to be doing. You won't know what $div is doing. I might as well, if I'm going to kind of follow that practice, I might as well, I'm trying to share. That's like doing this. Not as extreme. Let x is equal to, x. Or let x is equal to 10. Are you going to know what x means on line 501? I'm going to be like, what the hell was x? And then there's y, and then there's z. Like, those are horrible naming conventions for variables. So in our particular example, this was a really basic example, right? So I'm creating a div, and I'm adding it to the body, and then I'm giving it a class of meat. So if I was to do this, I would maybe say, hey, div meat 2. Or because it was ostrich, div ostrich. I would do ostrich. I would do something like that. That way, when I see this variable all the way down here, I know that that was the ostrich variable and not some just generic div that I don't recall what it did. So if we wanted to do this whole div construct, I would have to do div 1, div 2, and div 3 to create new divs. And then that's why this looping construct, you see this looping construct? Because I'm in the scope here of the for loop, I can recreate this because every iteration of the loop creates the div, and when the loop ends, it wipes everything out. The loop begins again, that div gets created brand new. When the loop ends, it goes away. Loop starts, brand new const. There's no conflict here with $div exists. That help, Jeremy?
Yeah, that helps. Sorry, I don't know if you heard me or not. And then like with the H3, does the H3 $H3, do we need to make a new one of those?
Yeah.
Like, should I call?
It's the same context there. The H3 needs to have its own naming convention. So why, when you're doing this, right, you're doing stuff the long way, right? You can obviously see a pattern. It's like, all right, I did this div already, and now they want me to do it again. So I got to do const, div 2 is equal to new div. Like, I don't know, that's pretty tedious, right? I don't want to do this, and then the same thing with the H3. I don't know, const, H3 2, I don't know, second div. That doesn't really make much sense, right? I would never use that as a naming convention because then I would get lost. Maybe I might do this or something, or div _2 or something like that, right? Whatever it is. You wouldn't use underscores anyway, but the fact that they're numbers, maybe I would have two numbers. I don't know. After a while, when you start doing this pattern, you start realizing that this pattern is the way to go, right? If I can store the text and perhaps the class in here, then I can loop over that and then grab those corresponding values. right? That's to me what I would probably do. Or I could have said like this, let food is equal to, so we have dairy. What did we have in here for dairy? Did we have dairy? It's just dairy, right? So I'm going to say let milk. And then for meat, let, I don't know, pig, right? And then down here, I could have said, hey, let's give it some text, right? Div, what do we use for div? Div, do we give text? Yeah, dot text, right? And I could have said food I. Let's see what happens here. Nothing happened. Did I break it? Nope. Not doing it. So food I. It should have done it, right? Because this did it with the add class. So I'm surprised that this did not. So here I would say, hey, I'm just going to console log and see what food I produces so that I know that it's producing something, right? It's producing milk, it's producing pig, and yet I don't see it on my page. So I'm a little confused why I don't see it. Oh, I do. See right there? Oh, because you know why? Because it's not an H3. Right? I didn't create an H3. Do you see milk and pig right here? Here they are, but they're not H3, so they're not centered. So I would have to do something like, you know, I would do this. Const H3 is equal to, right? And then do here, I was doing it the wrong way. H3 dot text food I. I'm going to get rid of this and this, right? The div adds the class. The div appends the H3, right? And then the body appends the div, and everybody lives happily ever after. See? Boop, boop. I'm doing kind of what you're doing manually, line by line by line, and wrapping it up here for the sake of efficiency, for the sake of saying, I could do what I'm doing, I could do 1,000 of these things, while it would take you an hour to manually copy, paste, right? Cool. So we only have 14. Anyone else going to click on that emoji? Are we waiting for anyone else? There we go. Those numbers are going up because I really want to get to the lab and get everyone kind of working before.
I think I'm just really lost.
Okay.
Like,
talk to me.
So we need to make just spaces. We're just copying and pasting the same code, right?
Yeah, the code that you were doing, not this, right? I was just kind of showing you how to be a bit more efficient. You were doing the same way, so it would have been like this. You couldn't just copy and paste the same code.
Right. You do like constant H3 or H4. It can. Oh.
So I'm going to do div2 is equal to a new div. Because this has already been defined. I can't reuse this.
Right.
I need a new div. And then I would do, now that I have the div, right? I'm going to say, hey, div dot add div2 dot add class, you know, dairy. Let's just add the class of dairy.
Right.
I'm going to create const h3 2, right? I know. Once again, I don't want to like make it confusing, so I'm just going to use the underscore.
Right.
Not what I want to do, but we're going to do it. And I'm going to say h3, right? And then I'm going to say, hey, div2 append this new, and I didn't use the $ here, so I want to keep my variables consistent. H3 underscore 2. So now I create a div.
Right.
I append a class.
Right.
I create an H3.
Correct.
I append the H3 to the div.
Okay.
I grab the body and I append the div, lowercase, to the body. These 5 lines of code. Let's see what happens. See? I didn't give the text, the H3 any text. So let's do that. H3 to dot text, please. Okay.
That's
Make it end. That's what I feel, right? I feel like it's Friday and everyone's just like, man, Joe, you're crazy, dude. Do you see?
Yeah, I'm starting to get it. Yeah.
If I wanted to do a third one, I would copy, paste, div 3, div 3, h3,
Right.
3, h3, 3. Make it end, please. 3, 3, 3, and bam, we'd have it. We'd have another one.
I get it.
Okay. Awesome. So let's bang this out here. Let's get this going here. All right. So now we know how to do that. Sweet. All right. We can also grab, so we can grab one element and we can grab multiple elements if we want. Okay. There's a bunch of other methods that we have available to us. So I'm just going to take a look here. And we spent a lot of time on this. So grabbing multiple elements. If I do this, how many divs are in our HTML? Quite a few, right? If I do this in jQuery, I'm grabbing every div that's there. Okay? This grabs every div. So if I just simulate that and said like, let all divs equal to div, and then I console log all divs, and we go to the console log here, and I refresh. Oh, I'm missing this after argument list. Where's that coming from? Line 35. Here we go. Boom. That's the one. Here we go. See all divs? See how many divs I have? All of the divs that we created. So jQuery can grab one thing, or jQuery can grab everything. Okay? We can hide all the divs too. Look, this hide method. Check this out. This is pretty cool. All divs dot hide. Just gonna move this to the bottom. Look what happens. I'm gonna refresh this. I'm gonna get rid of everything. Watch. Oh snap! Where'd they go? Where'd all my divs go? So I'm gonna take a look. What did I assign to the divs? What does dot hide do?
Display none's it.
What's that? Display none, right? Inline styles, display none. Okay. If I do this, all divs show, tell me what it does. Doesn't really put a display block or display anything. It just removes display none, right? So I'm showing you one allows you to hide things, and it adds display none. Display shows like, hey, if it had display none, just remove the display property or display none, and then it's gone, okay? So we have the ability to use additional methods, and this is where things just start to get really like interesting, okay? We can also grab elements, you know, grab a specific class using .neat, okay? Just like the way you target things in CSS, you target them in jQuery the same way. So if I was like, and I did meet up here earlier, right? Did I do a meet up here? Look, so when I did meet, I grabbed it based on an ID. So I already grabbed something based on a class by using the dot. Okay, when I grab body, I used the tag name. If we had an ID on the page, which we don't, I would be using a £sign to grab it, right? Now, I'm going to hold off on the activity because I want to get you into the lab, okay? I'll kind of just walk through. Here we prepend an image to the page. Here's prepending. Did anyone look into the prepend method? It just grabs the body and it puts it as the first thing.
I did it.
Yeah. So prepend takes the element and it adds it as the first thing instead of the last thing. Everything we've been doing here has been adding them as the last thing. Prepend adds it as the first thing, okay? And here we're just creating an image and doing it via the image tag, okay? If we had multiple elements accessing specific elements in a group, we would use this, right? We know this, right? If this thing returns something that's array-esque, we know that we can use the index position to grab the thing. And I showed you that earlier when we were even just doing JavaScript. The same context works, okay? I'm just trying to get you where we're going to be able to leverage some other stuff. So this particular one here allows you to choose, of all the divs, I can grab the second div and grab its children and give it a text like this. Oh, sorry. So if I just take this, I'm going to take this. I grabbed all the divs. Did I grab all the divs? Here's the divs, right? I'm going to do this. Now watch what happens when I go here. And the second one, oh, you know what? Let me get rid of these hides and shows. Did it do it? It did not do it. Divs. Oh, because I did all divs. All divs. Still didn't do it. All divs. All, oh, I don't have the $sign here. See? And it still didn't work. So I'm curious, why am I producing any errors? All divs is not defined. All divs, all divs. So I'm going to get rid of this error and see if it reproduces that same error. Then it is the same error. Here we go. Oh, this is it. The console log is what's causing the problem. There we go. Nothing. And look, kohlrabi. So what this is really doing is it's like, grab all the divs, get the second one where the position is equal to 2. So I'm just going to put here maybe like a little note. .eq2 says grab the element at position 2. And then grab its children, which is a H3, and give a text. Do you see how the hierarchy is working? Grab it, grab its children, and give all the children a text of kohlrabi. Okay. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to hold off on the activity because I want you to jump into the lab. I want you to like a solid hour to work within the lab. Okay? What is it, 4:46? So I'm going to jump into the lab. Let me create. Stop sharing. Can I do this? Let me. Stop. I think I have to get permissions from Jerica. Hey, Jerica, if you're there, can you make me the host so I can create the breakout rooms? Hey, Jerica. Can you make me host? Sign breakout rooms.
Yeah, I just made them. Do you want me to open up the rooms now?
Hello?
Do you want me to open up the rooms now? I have them made.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Here you go. You're off.